Hi, I'm Jeff Murrow. I want to welcome you to True Texas History, where today we are going to talk about the Halsey-Early Feud. Now, this is a feud that occurred in the late 1860s over in Bell County area, around the town of Belton and that whole vicinity. And I decided to go ahead and do this feud. Well, one, because it's important to go ahead and cover feuds, and people are interested in feuds. And secondly, because there seems to be a lot of misinformation about some of the feuds and what was behind them. It's almost like when it comes to the feuds, especially in the days after the war, everything gets whitewashed. And no one wants to deal with some of the nitty-gritty issues behind it. Well, in this particular feud, the main character is Sam Halsey. Now, Sam was a soldier, served in a cavalry unit, Baylor's Regiment, if you want to look that up. And he came home on a furlough toward the end of the war. And on coming home, he discovered that his father, Drew Halsey, had been manhandled something fierce by a fellow in the community by the name of John Early. Now, John Early had stayed behind in the city of Belton and was part of the Home Guard. Now, the Home Guard was an interesting outfit. They were supposed to be here in Texas protecting the frontier, yet many times they got sloppy in carrying things out, and they fell prey to corruption like a lot of other organizations. Now, in the case of John Early, he saw that the fortunes of war were changing, and he decided to switch sides. He went from talking big on Texas to being very pro-unionist. And during the course of that, he apparently had manhandled Drew Halsey, even to the point of pulling some of the hair out of Drew Halsey's beard. And he was an older fella, and his hair was white. And at that time in Texas, especially on the frontier, you tended to keep your mouth shut about a lot of things, not say a whole lot. And one thing that you definitely did not do is you did not lay a hand on a neighbor. Because that was a fighting action. If you went ahead and struck somebody, it would lead to violence, either from that person or from one of their relatives. Well, Sam came home, and on finding his dad beat up, he was furious, and he went looking for John Early, and it was a little hard because the war ended quickly, Reconstruction was underway, and there was a lot of tension. And so he found some like-minded people that felt like he did, and they still had a mindset that they were very independently minded, and they were not wanting to submit to some of the local authorities because there was a lot of bad blood that had come out, shall we say. Another person in the local community, Dr. Clark, who apparently had been a secret unionist, and when the war ended, he comes out and says, see, I was for the union the whole time. You had him, and then you had a character by the name of Judge Hiram Christian. And what would happen in post-war Belton, there were episodes of cattle rustling and lawlessness, but if you happened to be associated with the union, you could get away with it. it was tolerated. And the people had had enough of the lawlessness, and Sam Halsey and his friends decided to go ahead and take action into their own hands. And at one point, there was a gang of outlaws known as the Shackleford Gang, and they just conveniently disappeared and ended up dead, which no one ever found out who did it, but all suspicion is on John Early, I mean, not Early, but Sam Halsey and his friends that had put together a gang. And essentially, they were operating like vigilantes, taking care of the bad guys so that the good people were not interrupted. Now, at one of those times, somebody decided to go ahead and get paybacks for some of the wartime activities, and there were some unexplained hangings in Belton, and somebody gave a list to the local judge that Hiram Christian, it was just a list of several people that included Drew Halsey, which was Sam Halsey's father. They drug him to Austin, and he never stood trial, mind you. They just drug him there on trumped up charges. And in the meantime, Halsey was still taking action in the midst of this feud. Now, one episode I found this interesting. Halsey was riding into town, and a group of carpetbaggers were there, and one of them was John Early. And, almost like a fellow that goes through a group of motorcyclists and they kind of part. They went ahead and parted and let him through, and he knew Early's horse. And when he got right up to the end of that group of men, he saw Early's horse, pulled his gun, and shot. Unfortunately, the horse thought that the shot was going toward him, so he reared up, and Early managed to escape that episode, but Halsey took off in the brush, and none of these people dared go out in the brush chasing down Sam Halsey because of his fierce reputation. Now, eventually, the judge found out that Halsey was looking for him. He had court one day. I believe it was either July 2nd or 3rd, word came that Halsey was looking for him. He did not even sign out of the courthouse that day. He took off lickety-split to Missouri. Next thing you know, the judge is with us no more. He disappeared, although there's no official records that Halsey did him in all likelihood Halsey did. Now, Halsey, after going ahead and taking care of the people associated with John Early, somehow Early managed to escape and disappeared. Now, Halsey returned back to Belton, and according to some records, he was a sheriff, and he was drunk one day, and he decided to ride his horse on the sidewalk, and one of the deputies told him to stop, and he refused to obey the deputy, and the deputy went ahead and pulled his gun on him and shot Sam Halsey there in Belton. Now, depending on which account you read, some accounts paint Halsey as a bad guy and Early as the good guy. Some go ahead and take a look at it honestly in terms of talking about the animosities that arose during the war and how people mistreated each other. And then I even read one account talking about, the Christian family and the judge that went to Missouri, and he was minding his own business, and these secessionists just come up and just blow him away for no reason at all. They conveniently leave out the abuse of power when he was a judge and hauling people before the court just because he didn't like them, things such as that. And what I'm finding with many of the feuds in Texas, there were usually some good grounds for people to be upset on one side or the other. Well, this is one of those feuds that there was not a lot of information on, but I wanted to share what I had come across, hoping to touch on some of the other feuds to bring you up to speed on. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them below. I'm glad you tuned in. There's a lot of lessons we can learn about feuds and dealing with lawlessness and crazy times, because we can relate to that even more and more each passing day. Until next time, this is Jeff Murrah wishing you vaya con Dios, my friends. Goodbye.